Today we're going to discuss about Trump's America 2.0 and what India can expect. Now, as far as America and India are concerned, we are supposed to be strategic partners, and we are. And this strategic partnership has been growing for the past 25 years. But what's changed from what it was, say, a month back to now? Uh, a new president, Mr. Trump, in his second avatar. What do we expect? Much like what everyone else expects, a lot of uncertainty. A certain stream suggests that, look, the Trump presidency will give primacy to India because of the simple fact that after Benjamin Netanyahu, our prime minister, meeting Mr. Trump, the second head of state to do so. And a lot of things are to be discussed. But on the other hand, we all know Mr. Trump is transactional. And there are a lot of issues. We have a lot of alignments and we have a lot of misalignments. Misalignments, if I just highlight BRICS, SEO, equation with Russia, Chabahar port, all those. And what is, I wouldn't say at stake, but what needs to be sorted out with our new transactional relationship with USA is the issue of our strategic autonomy. And many more. I just highlighted. I've just put out the pegs on which we can hang our clothes. I request Brig Arun Sahgal, sir, all yours.
Thank you, Jalan Shankar. It's always a pleasure to be on your show and amongst some good friends and a very senior diplomat. My remarks would be covering the perspective of Indo-US relationships, and I'll take a slightly strategic context of our partnership because there are a lot of, I mean, everybody talking about what he would do, what he should not do, etc. So I'll try to place the relationship where it stands today. So the first part will be the placing India-US relationship in the Indo-Pacific context. The second part would be the India-US strategic partnership. Where does it stand? How does we feel? I mean, it's the most consequential partnership, but how is it being perceived? So I'll try to give you understanding based on my interactions with the Americans at both at the diplomatic as well as the political and to some degree at the think tank levels. And I will, in third part, talk about quickly on the Indo-US Defense Cooperation. Now, coming to the first part, looking at the larger geopolitical context. Uh, in the larger geopolitical context, we had to, as far as Biden administration was concerned, it was creating what is called a strong discursive posture vis-a-vis China by through multilaterals, plurilaterals, and bilaterals, essentially focusing on East Asia, but in India was a strong partner in that relationship. The the central pillar of that strategy was U.S. containment. Now there is a shift taking place. There's something. This is a discernible shift that is taking place. It's coming out at the middle level and the senior middle level of what is being called to not to look at China essentially as a challenger. I mean, as an enemy kind of a power, but to look at China as a strategic competitor who has to be managed. So this notion is coming through also for the fact is that Trump is not an interventionist player. He is more interested in dealing with trade and investments and other issues, building up relationships on those issues rather than on the issue of directly challenging the United States. So this is so they are looking at what they are trying to look at now is they're saying is do we have to have a relationship of you know of antagonism with China? Can we play it short? The next question that is being asked is what does Taiwan? What does it mean? Taiwan is important. Taiwan's independence is important. Taiwan's Integration, if at all has to take place, it has to be peaceful. But is the United States as an offshore power is willing to go to war with China to defend Taiwan? Is it worth it? So, so what they are also looking at is that we need to be looking at a scenario where we engage, we compete, short of coercion, with the aim of what they are trying to say, establishing cold peace. So the whole idea of cold peace is being brought about in the sense that it is not important to have a war kind of a relationship with this thing. But having said that, their new thinking is that we are not giving up on contesting and containing China. But there is a shift in that. The shift in that is that the since United States is an offshore power, it will play a more supportive role in the Chinese contestment and containment strategy in dealing with their anti-access area denial strategy. But the owners or the first line of defense of Chinese containment has to come from the regional allies and partners. And towards this regional alliance and partners is the whole centrality of the new thinking which is being based upon. So what that does mean? It basically means is that the United States is saying that we will develop capacities, capabilities of our own to deal with China, but it is also important for its partners to develop those capacities and capabilities. That brings us to the question of what does one look how does one look at when he says that there will be a more defense cooperation taking place. The centrality of this defense cooperation, therefore, is going to get enmeshed in this construct of building up Indian capacity and capabilities to deal with this scenario. So the the second thing is there is also within this whole construct a thinking is that we have to acknowledge the fact that the world has moved from unipolarity to bipolarity. What is the nature of this bipolarity? Is something which is emerging. It is true that it is an unbalanced bipolarity where America does hold a hand, but does America hold a hand everywhere? Can America play to its strength in managing the East Asian order in the manner it has done so? So, when we look at this construct, when we look at our issues, how does this impact us? This impacts us in the fashion that when we have a issue with the Chinese, what is it that the Americans and us can work together on? We certainly do not expect the American boots on the ground. What we expect from Americans is their intelligence sharing. We're part of multi-domain initiatives, maritime domain initiatives, other normal initiatives, etc., etc. But fundamental fact remains is west of Malacca, there is no U.S. presence. So the whole issue has to be handled by us. So if we have to put in our own money, own resources, work along with the Americans to deal with the centrality of the challenge that we face, we have to rethink our entire approach. Or I'm sure we have an approach, and we need to calibrate that approach. I tell you, there is an essential, interesting element that is coming out of this. The essential element is that one of the two agreements which recently have been signed, one of the agreement is sending a liaison officer to U.S. Central Command. U.S. Central Command is becoming what is called a laboratory for developing large number of joint technological concepts. Nothing technology is coming, but the large number of technologies concepts, including AI, ISR related issues, space-based systems, in which we have to both try to work together. How much of that working is going to happen, we don't know. But this is what is the new conceptual thinking within the United States establishment is, and this permeates from the National Security Council, which is the central point, goes to the DoD, and then it is also ensconced and easily in the State Department. So this brings me to my next question: is what is the level of understanding of United States about India as a strategic partner? I'll come to the other part a little later. There is no doubt in the American mind that in dealing with the Indo-Pacific, in its assessment of the challenges of the Indo-Pacific, apart from their alliance partners, i.e. Australia, i.e. Japan, i.e. South Korea, India is the core player. India is a complete power which has the potential, may not yet have the capabilities, has the potential to play a role of a regional balancer, a net security provider, a role they never can assign to either Japan or Australia. AUKUS programs, etc., are there for power balancing up to a particular point, but they are also aware that nothing of AUKUS is ever going to see the light of the day before 2040. They are concerned about that, or 2035 latest, earliest. So therefore, India is an important player in their geostrategic perspective of dealing with the Chinese threat. From our perspective, apart from the support systems and the kind of acquisitions that we get from America, that is all that is there. So that brings me to a question: is if when we are looking at technology partnership with the United States and building up technological capacities and capabilities in India, that is primarily because we want to ensure that a certain credibility of India's military capabilities to dealing with these challenges, which is going to do is stand alone. But in the United States, please understand from my perspective, that's I've written about it also, is that there are three tiers that look at India, and each one of them look at India separately. Political establishment is sold on India, and they understand the role India will play, and they are also conscious of the fact that they do not want to allow a second Russia movement in 2025, which basically means is that they do not want to imbalance or push India into a corner that it sort of starts weaning away itself away from the United States. But the legislative establishment, one which is also has at the back of them their own supporters, their own investors, and the big military industrial complex, they want to know what's in it for us. And the State Department is always worried about democracy and human rights, etc., 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 and the other aspects of it is they try to put their own pressure on it. Added to all this is the military industrial lobby, who do not see enough billions of dollars coming out of India for them to shape their perceptions in a fashion that India becomes a core player. So there are multiple centers who look India separately. So that's why you get different voices. And of course, there is this syndrome of India, like General Murthy and Jankar Shankar just now said, that look, Indians are being looked upon in a different fashion now. There is this MAGA racket that is now starting that is having its impact. So this is another issue which is gonna which is going to impact how the relationship is built up. Now I come quickly to my last point is Indo-US defense cooperation. First fundamental point we have to remember is that I track the joint statement issues after the 2023 Prime Minister's state visit to United States. The sad reality is only 10% of that joint statement of 74 page has been acted upon so far. Everything else is in the pipeline. Number two, our effort has been on technology partnership and co-development. All signs today are there of more government to government sales. May it be 6 additional PATIs, maybe additional funding for the wanted pushing us to buy Javelin, or delay in 404. Delayed. Interesting facet is the 404s are being diverted towards their own planes to build up on their own reserve capabilities, then giving it to us. Now, of course, they're realizing it that things are not hunky dory. We have to satisfy India because we have taken money and we have an order of 99 of those. So that some shift is taking place. Second thing is on the 414, we are hoping the contract will be signed by end of March or early April. It'll only happen when it happens. Before that, we have no idea what is going to happen. And the issue of technology transfers, and as part of the ISAT program, everything is in a conceptual to let's put it early stages. We are not going anywhere in that direction much, and what we can see probably is another 10 to 15 years before anything substantive comes out. But what has to be the impact of this? Please understand. I just was in Istanbul. I came this morning. Every single technology that is being talked about, every single aspect of a relationship that is being talked about, is being consumed by our opponents as something which is happening, which is on the line, and that is being used by them to talk to their supporters to get those technologies from them. And the interesting facet is, like it was mentioned just now, the J-35s are on offer to the Pakistanis.
Pakistanis.
Yeah, to the Pakistanis. That's their offer. And the Pakistanis are confident. Incidentally, Pakistan seriously believes they are ahead of us in AI. They seriously believe that. Whether they are or not is not an issue. And then one guy told around and said, he says, we are getting plug and play kind of technologies from the Chinese. Off the record, of course. In public, they would say something else. But that's how. So what I'm trying to say is, at one level, one huge expectation is being built up. On the other, nothing is being delivered. On the third hand, is that our so-called our challengers are using that leverage to get technologies from left, right, and center players who are going. I mean, Turkey is providing a huge amount of this thing. They are into co-development of the fifth generation fighter with the Pakistani. China is giving them a lot. And there was this report, which is a very interesting report, where the Gwadar is being signed off for a second strike capability by the Chinese to
Yes.
Pakistan. So so these are the issues that so when we look at the relationship with the United States, we have to look at it in totality, rather than just simply get away that Trump is this or Biden did this, etc. What are the deliverables for India, and how should India develop its own leverages, own capacities to deal with the United States? Thank you. I've taken, I think, more time than I should have. I apologize.
That's fine, sir. Thanks a lot. I think you covered a lot of ground in the strategic context. I'll not go over all these, but I think a few issues which you have highlighted are important macro issues. Uh, there's a shift. There's a shift in US thinking. so that perceptions of containment, competition, and bilateral or a G2 basis or a bilateral global order or a bipolar global order, whatever you call it, is going to change. And with that, we need to be tuned on to this change. Uh, while it's a welcome development that they consider India a major player between the Gulf of Eden and the Malacca Strait, we need to develop our capacities. And and here comes the fact that there's an expectation vis-a-vis actual reality vis-a-vis the projection which is going across. And like you rightly said, the India Defense Cooperation, which started with a lot of fanfare when our Prime Minister went, all about ISET and aircraft engines and AI and all those, they are not yet taken on in the way we wanted. Semiconductors and all that, we're still struggling. Uh, Having said all this, I want to put in an issue in the business of AI. While a lot of this technology might not be coming directly, it might be coming through the indirect private route, which was the original idea of ISET. And why I say this is because Microsoft is investing a lot of effort and money into developing AI research centers in India based on Indian capability, the human capability. And some sooner or later, they're going to rub off, especially after this DeepSeek things will change. We will have to keep our options open. And whatever the deep state which develops, we'll have to keep going with them. But towards the end, you brought up that issue of what's happening between Ukraine and Russia and Chabahar and all that. And a lot of our strategic autonomy and everything will depend on whether the Ukraine-Russia war can finish or come to some reasonable conclusion or a reasonable state of inaction, whatever you call it. And then we'll have to start relooking at the whole thing, and we'll have to see how the Iran-US equation also develops. And that will have a direct impact on what we have to do in the Indian Ocean region also, if I may second guess. So, Brigadier Saigal, sir, your thoughts on all this? Where do you think all this will go? Because, again, we are now shooting in the dark.
Okay, so fundamentally, I believe that uh, the the love fest with South Asia is not completely going to be over. I don't think America can, and it's not because of South Asia, the five small South Asian countries. It is about the power dynamics at play in South Asia, and that's number one. Number two is because if you notice. Uh, the game in the East Asia is more or less, or there is a standoff taking place, but it is also, I mean, there are no major moves being taking place. The Chinese power and influence is going to become more and more as it becomes a 23, $24 trillion economy into this region. West Asia will continue to be an area of concern for the Americans, whether they like it or not, as long as Iran is there. As far as Pakistan is concerned, please do not. I mean, I'm a guy who's been talking to these guys for the last 15 years now. Please do not think that the Americans have pulled out of there. No, Americans have not pulled out of. They remain committed over there for a number of reasons, which we can't go right now. But they, the attention span may be less, involvement will be there. Chinese moves as they move towards the warm waters of the Indian Ocean from various multiple directions will be taken note of, and the aspect that what happens in the Middle East, which has the ramifications, and the Persian Gulf on the trade routes, etc., would be an area of concern. Yes, it is true. The American power and influence may become less, but Americans will remain committed, and Americans would work with partners, and in that India will be an important partner, along with, of course, other Middle Eastern players. And the IMAC is an important aspect which we must not overrule. IMAC and I2U2 are important issues. The story of the IMAC you can see interestingly is when you're standing on the, when you look at the map and look at the closeness of Mediterranean next to Israel, and secondly, you see the Mediterranean from Bosphorus. You see, when you stand there and you see the history and the geography meeting together, you understand what is trying to be held. The whole idea is to connect Europe through this part as an important trade route. And that is where the whole issue lies of how do we create new salience of the trade saliences. So this is an issue which will happen. He will not give up on it. He might, it'll all be a function of how he manages his core relationships. And his managing of his core relationships are three. One is war in Eurasia, and stability in Europe on terms with that he can bring it down. Number two is the Israel and the Middle East, and number three is how he handles the China factor, and how in what manner and shape that the relationship comes about. These three issues will define his. America cannot sit out. Please understand that. Now the thing is, when I'm talking about bilateral world, Americans cannot sit out. They do not have the capacity to sit out now. And there is another fourth element which is coming up, which the Americans are not looking there seriously, but they will have to start looking seriously, is the global south as a new center point of commerce, trade, and investments. So it is not going to be that easy that he can just become an isolationist power. No. If he becomes an isolationist power, he loses out. And please also do not forget that this whole issue of BRICS, new currency, de-dollarization issue may be slow to take off, but it will have its impact. Just go and get the figures of how much money has gone out of the American securities in the last couple of 6 months. Just get a ballpark figure. People are worried. People are concerned. They don't want to put money in a bank which they don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So these are the issues that will matter. And of course, last importantly is technology. Technology game will be fiercely played. It'll be fiercely played, and I do not know. And there the technology supply chains will become important. And for Trump to and his administration to ensure that some credibility of the supply chains is going to be another factor which will keep him looking at this region a little more than we perceive he would. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir.